Breaking tonight, new signs of the sick ideology of ISIS infiltrating the United States, with word tonight that there are 3 arrests in New York City and an ominous warning from the director of the FBI. Welcome, everybody, to the Kelly File. I'm Martha McCallum, in for Megyn Kelly. So as we continue to witness these atrocities, these kidnappings, these beheadings at the hands of ISIS, the threat now hits closer to home today because 3 men originally in this country legally now face charges. 2 nabbed here in New York. They were living in Brooklyn, the other in Florida. 2 plan to wage jihad overseas, and if they couldn't get there, they threatened to kill Americans. One of their target, the President of the United States. It comes on the same day that the FBI director reveals his agents are inspecting and investigating suspicious people in pretty much every corner of America.
We have investigations of people in various stages of radicalizing in all 50 states. This isn't a New York phenomenon or a Washington phenomenon. This is all 50 states, and in ways that are very hard to see.
Pretty incredible. Trace Gallagher joins us now with a full report from our West Coast newsroom. Hi, Trace.
Hi, Martha. The FBI says Plan A was for the men to join ISIS, maybe hijack a plane to Syria. Plan B was to launch terror attacks in the U.S., to bomb Coney Island and possibly kill FBI agents. The criminal complaint says the youngest suspect, 19-year-old Akor Saidametov from Kazakhstan, said, quote, "We will go purchase 1 handgun, then go and shoot 1 police officer. Boom. Then take his gun, bullets, and bulletproof vest. Then we will go to the FBI headquarters, kill the FBI people." The 2 other suspects from Uzbekistan had other plans. 24-year-old Abdurasal Jiraboev wrote on an Uzbek website, quote, "Is it possible to commit ourselves as dedicated martyrs anyway while here? What I'm saying is to shoot Obama and then get shot ourselves. Will it do?" Jiraboev was gunning for Obama to avenge the U.S. airstrikes against ISIS. The FBI had the suspects under surveillance for months, but New York Police Commissioner William Bratton says this was real. Listen.
This is the concern about the lone wolf inspired to act without ever going to the Middle East, or the concern of, once they get to the Middle East, acquire fighting skills, capabilities, and then attempting to return to the country.
All 3 men have been arraigned on terrorism charges, but FBI Director James Comey today compared terrorism in the U.S. to cancer, saying the Arab Spring, chaos in Libya, and the Syrian war allowed the tumor to grow into ISIS, which is using the internet as a spider web to attract would-be jihadists in the U.S. Listen.
That is a message that goes out to troubled souls everywhere, resonates with troubled souls, people seeking meaning in some horribly misguided way. Those people exist in every state. Right? I have homegrown violent extremist investigations in every single state.
And by the way, Alaska is the final state to have a homegrown terror investigation, Martha.
That's incredible. Thank you, Trace. Also tonight, a warning that a number of Christians taken from their homes and families in Syria, that number may be far higher than we first thought. We first told you that the numbers that were being reported were maybe around 100 people. We're now hearing today that it could be as many as 200 to 400 individuals. The President's National Security Council has now weighed in late today. They condemned these attacks some 48 hours after everybody first started talking about them and reporting them. And remember that this comes just a week after 21 Christians were simultaneously beheaded in the desert on the beach in Libya. Yet today, Secretary of State John Kerry said this.
Truth is that notwithstanding the threat of ISIL, notwithstanding people being beheaded publicly and burned publicly and the atrocities that they are perpetrating, and it is a serious, serious challenge to us, notwithstanding that, there is actually less threat and less probability of people dying in some sort of violent conflict today than at any time in human history.
Really? Mark Thiessen joins us. He's former chief speechwriter for President George W. Bush and a Fox News contributor. How can John Kerry say that, Mark?
What on earth is he talking about? I mean, that is just absurd. I mean, put aside all the things that you showed on your air. 200,000 people have died in Syria while this administration stood on the sidelines and did nothing. I mean, he says it's less likely than ever that someone's going to get killed in a conflict. Tell that to the families of the Americans who were beheaded by ISIS. Tell that to the family of Kayla Mueller. Tell that to the families in Paris who lost people in that kosher deli and in Charlie Hebdo. Tell that to the 21 Egyptian Christians who were beheaded in Egypt, or the family of that Jordanian pilot who was burned in a cage. What on earth is the Secretary of State of the United States of America talking about?
I mean, at the very least, it's very insensitive for the very reasons that you just pointed out, Mark, the enormous amount of tragedy and heartache. I mean, can you imagine King Abdullah saying that, given what his country had to witness? Can you imagine General Sisi saying that, given what his people are going through? But it's not the first time that we've heard that kind of language. We've heard the president downplay this time and time again in terms of where the real threat lies from this group. We heard Josh Earnest back in July say that, you know, the administration has improved the tranquility of the global situation. So obviously, this line of thinking that, you know, really, when you put it all in perspective, it's not that bad, is part of their mantra.
I mean, they don't take the threat seriously. It's the only thing you conclude from it. It's not just one flub. This is a constant mantra we're getting from this administration. And the reality is that the threat we face today is worse and more dangerous than the threat we faced before 9/11. I mean, if you think about it, Martha, before 9/11, we faced a threat from one terror network, Al-Qaeda, that was located in one country. Today, you've got ISIS, you've got core Al-Qaeda, you've got ISIS, you've got Al-Qaeda's affiliates, and they're all competing for leadership of the jihadi movement. And they're not in one country, they're in Syria, they're in Iraq, they're in Yemen, they're in Somalia, they're in Libya. They're all over the world, and they have said, clearly, the leader of ISIS has said, we are coming after you. The day is coming. My message to the Americans is, we will be in direct conflict, and the Sons of Islam have prepared for this day. What part of this do they not get?
Yeah, there's an end of days story that they're watching play out and they're marking time with in all of this. I mean, did you ever think, Mark, when you were growing up, that you would live in a world where you would see things on television like a man being burned in a cage or people being beheaded up and down the beach? I think people are so unnerved, and justifiably so, by the images that we are all, you know, forced to absorb. I mean, and that's all we have to do so far is absorb them. It's mind-blowing what we're watching playing out in the world. And to hear John Kerry say that is just bizarre.
It is bizarre, but it's not just bizarre, it's dangerous. It shows a lack of appreciation of the threat we face. I mean, the American people are way ahead of this administration in terms of their perception of the threat, and they have to take this threat seriously. When the enemy says, we are going to be in conflict, you have to take the words of the enemy seriously. We didn't take the words of Osama bin Laden seriously in the 1990s, and 9/11 was the price we paid. We cannot afford to make that same mistake again.
Very true. Mark, thank you very much.
Thanks, Martha.
So my next guest will be testifying before Congress tomorrow on the efforts to defeat ISIS. General Jack Keane is the chairman of the Institute for the Study of War and a Fox News military analyst. General, good to have you here this evening ahead of your testimony. So I know one of the things that you're going to talk about is this AUMF, the authorization of military force that Congress is working on to sort of sign off on the president's plan. What do you think of that plan so far? What can you tell us?
Well, I can't go into all the details of the testimony, but I can tell you some things that I've already shared with the Congress when it concerns the authorization for the use of military force. What the president has done in that proposal, he's put two significant constraints in it, which are very unusual. We have two other authorizations that are standing right now today, one from 2001, one from 2002, and they don't have anything like this in them. And the first one is, the constraint is, this authorization is only good for 3 years. Now, why is that a problem? Well, here we go again. We're telling our enemies that we're only in this thing for 3 years. It's a lack of resolve and commitment, and that contributes to undermining our allies in the region as well. The second thing is, Martha, is the president, and it's part of a pattern that he's been saying now for almost a year, actually is constraining the use of a ground force for any particular length of time other than a few days. So what does that mean? Well, here's what it means. the facts are, to defeat ISIS, it is widely recognized that the only way you can defeat ISIS is with a decisive ground force victory in Iraq and also in Syria. To constrain the use of a ground force and not permit it to be used in any shape, form, or manner means that, by definition, we're not going to defeat ISIS. So it doesn't make much sense.
I spoke to a former SEAL who was in the Anbar province during the war in Baghdad, and he said, we know how to do this. We know how to defeat this kind of enemy. We've done it before, and we can do it again, but we need to be unleashed. And as you point out, that this proposal to Congress ties our hands more than anything else, really.
Yeah, absolutely so. And there'll be some disagreement in the Congress, certainly. There'll be many that will agree with what I just said, but there'll be others that actually want more constraints on the use of military force. And normally these authorization documents give the president latitude because he has to decide how he's going to use the force, and he has every right to change how he intends to use that force. And it's better to let him have that latitude than to restrict it.
Yeah, and base it on the advice of military on the ground and in the field. General Keane will be watching tomorrow. Thank you very much for being with us tonight. We'll see you then.
Good talking to you, Martha.
You too. So also today, not one, but two top administration officials launching ugly public attacks on a key American ally in the Middle East. Dana Perino is next on what is really going on here with the language back and forth between our leadership and Israel. Plus, we have an exclusive interview tonight with Senator Rand Paul on his 2016 plans. And wait till you hear what he is saying about one of his strongest Republican rivals. Coming up.